To the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the Russian Defense Ministry spokesperson Igor Konashenkov says Russian forces succeeded with an offensive in the Donetsk region. He also said Ukraine lost 4 Stryker armored vehicles. It would be the first time Russia has claimed to hit the U.S.-supplied vehicles. Konashenkov says a Russian missile strike hit and destroyed a Ukrainian train loaded with ammunition at Metsova railway station in the Dnipropetrovsk region. In the meantime, a Ukrainian infantry brigade has released combat footage from an embattled village a few kilometers south of Bakhmut on Wednesday. Local media was able to confirm the location as Klishivka from the buildings and terrain layout seen in the video, which matched satellite imagery of the same area. Reuters was not able to independently verify the date the video was recorded. Military spokesman Andriy Kovalyov said on national television that Ukraine continued to conduct offensive actions to the south of Bakhmut. Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen says he plans to ask China to take a stronger position on Ukraine and to speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin about the war. Rasmussen was making the comment in Shanghai at the start of his 3-day visit to China that Putin is not listening to European leaders, but is clearly listening to China, and that the latter should speak up. Rasmussen said he will discuss Ukraine and bilateral cooperation with his Chinese counterpart, Wang Yi, when the two meet on Friday in Beijing. He will also meet Chinese Commerce Minister Wang Wentao today. In June, Denmark, a strong supporter of Ukraine, increased its military aid to Ukraine to over $3 billion over the next 5 years. Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko today met Chinese Defense Minister Li Shangfu in Minsk at a meeting on forging closer military ties with China. Earlier this week, both men attended an international conference on security in Moscow, from which Li warned China's adversaries about playing with fire on the issue of Taiwan. His words echoed previous remarks by other Chinese officials and came amid Russia's ongoing special military operation in Ukraine. Earlier, China presented its own plan to end the conflict. Lukashenko visited Beijing in February and March 2023 to meet Chinese leader Xi Jinping in a bid to promote a strategic partnership between Belarus and China. And in another development, U.S. National Security spokesperson John Kirby says it's not clear what territorial threat the Wagner Group could pose in Europe. Asked about the movement of Wagner Group's forces, Kirby said some contingents remain deployed in Africa, some went to Belarus, and some could still be in or near Ukraine. Admiral Kirby said the U.S. government is taking note of the provocative actions and bellicose, pugilistic rhetoric out of Minsk. On Wednesday, the Lithuanian government decided to close 2 of the country's 6 border crossing points with Belarus due to geopolitical circumstances, weeks after Russian Wagner Group mercenaries took refuge in the country.
Watching what's going on in Belarus very, very closely. Certainly taking note of some of the provocative actions there, and certainly the bellicose, pugilistic rhetoric that continues to come out of the government there in Belarus. All I can tell you is we're in constant contact with our NATO allies, particularly on the eastern flank. We understand the concern. We share the concern. And the only other thing I'd say is that nothing has changed at all about our commitment to defend our NATO allies and defend every inch of NATO territory should it come to that. So we're watching this very closely, and we're certainly in close contact with our Polish allies, who we know this is not some rhetorical exercise for them. It's real for them. They live with that every single day, and we respect that. We understand that. But make no mistake that we're serious about our Article 5 commitment. And that's a segue to the other question you had, which is about additional force. So I don't have certainly any troop announcements to make today or anything like that. As you've seen, President Biden has already increased by some 20,000 the American troop presence in NATO, particularly on the eastern flank. And he has put in place processes where we can keep that presence there for the long haul. Rotational, but that they'll be able to stay. So we're up around 100,000 troops in the European theater right now, which is the most in many, many years since the Cold War. So the Wagner threat from Belarus, again, we're watching this closely. It's not really clear exactly where all the Wagner guys are. We know some of them went to Belarus. We know some of them went to Africa. We believe that there's probably some contingents that are either still in Ukraine or close by. But we're not exactly clear what the numbers are, and it's not clear to us what legitimate territorial threat they pose, at least in Europe. They continue to pose a significant concern on the African continent by the way they continue to destabilize governments there, support terrorists, and that kind of thing. But we're watching this as closely as we can. Again, all I can tell you is we take it seriously. We listen to what's coming out of Minsk. We're certainly mindful of the movement. We certainly are mindful of these recent events. But we're not. We haven't moved anything as a result. And if we need to do that, certainly we could. We take it seriously. Yeah.
Taking my.